Good evening and welcome to tonight's Hibbing Economic Development Authority regular meeting agenda. Tonight is November 20th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have everyone in attendance with the exception of Member Schweiberger. Additions, deletions, add board report number 1, and add our closed session. We have approval of the agenda. We will need a motion to approve the agenda, but we are going to move on the second page. 2C under the Community Development Director is going to be before 2A. So I will need to have an approval for.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Motion made by
Agenda.
Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Vice President Duranis. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to the approval of the minutes. We will need individual motions for these three. The first one is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority for October 16th, 2023. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Kivala and seconded by Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The second one, approve the minutes of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority special meeting for October 30th, 2023. Get a motion for that.
So moved.
Motion made by Member Kivala,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman-Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The third one, approve the minutes of the special Hibbing Economic Development Authority workshop for November 6th, 2023. Can we get a motion for that one?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Vice President Duranis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Number 1, affirm the Economic Development Loan Fund as of October 2023 in the amount of $905,896.98. Number 2, approve the disbursements for the month of October in the amount of,
She didn't send the amount.
No, the server was down on Friday. I think she thought maybe Candy was.
Okay. So we do not have an amount, so you'll
Okay.
have to strike that.
okay. So we will strike number 2.
Okay.
On to number
3.
3. Set the next regular meeting of Heda for Monday, December 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber. And number 4, set the next Heda working session for Monday, December 18th, 2023, following the regular meeting in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as read? Mo-
Go
ahead.
I think you were second, Raj. I think,
So, Madam President, I
Yeah,
will make
Madam President, I think
a
you
motion
should.
to approve the consent agenda as read and published with the striking of number 2.
Okay, we have a motion made by Hoffman-Sockman and seconded by Member Kivala. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We can move on to the presentations. Number 1, with the Heda loan with the Midwest Properties. Betsy?
Madam Chair, board members of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority, in your packet tonight, you have so a couple of items pertaining to this. One is a resolution to agree to a business subsidy. We did have the public hearing back in October around this particular loan. So we have had a couple of different meetings to consider this amount of $250,000 for this particular business. Our business owner, Mr. Bodnapu, has been here 3 or 4 times presenting to the EDA board on his project and the steps he's taking towards completion. So we do have the business subsidy agreement in front of you. We do have the resolution for said subsidy agreement that we have already looked at over the past month or so. And then we do have the loan write-up with the business plan and the projections and how the sources and uses of that additional funding will be spent. You have the recommendations for funding, which are at the end of the loan write-up. And so staff recommended loan terms is that we will be subordinated to the other lenders on the property. Thus, we're asking for a life insurance policy for the amount of the HEDA loan principal. The loan will be 3% for 10 years, interest only through the construction period, or 12 months, whichever is shorter. Listed as an additional insured on the business insurance policy, ACH payment required, personal guarantee required, and contingent on the IRRR and the primary lender approving the remainder of the loan. Are there any questions on the items as presented?
Do we have an opening date for this? Yeah, if you'd like to step forward, Sean, that'd be great.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
I don't have an opening date, like, my initial target was around in December timeframe, but a lot of challenges that I'm running into, especially the supply chain is completely upside down. And because of the labor shortage and like too many dependencies, so I'm trying to push as much as I can. So the next target date I'm looking at is in March timeframe.
March, you said?
March.
Sean? March or April.
March of 2024?
We're into, no, we're not
Yes.
into discussion yet, or are
Yes. Well,
we? We haven't made a motion.
Questions on the presentation
On the
is what I've asked
presentation.
for. Yep.
Yeah, I just, you had said contingent on IRRR and
The primary
bank loan.
lender.
Yes, primary lender.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
anybody else have any questions here? I'm trying to look.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I see, you've owned other motels in the past and stuff. Are they all going to be tied together, or is this a separate identity from others?
So that's a completely different entity.
Okay, this is standalone then.
It is a standalone.
Okay.
Because like if I tie it up with some other like franchisee model, like the overheads are pretty high.
Okay.
So you are the only person listed on the LLC
Yes,
for Midwest Properties? And you have other LLCs as well?
yes, I do.
Yes, we received the personal financial statement and have reviewed that as well.
And was it stipulated in there too about the prevailing wage?
When the IRRR lends into a project, that is the deal. That's how it
Okay.
works. Yep.
Okay.
So, and when we're commingler, or, all lending into the same part of the project, that's how that works. Yep. So, yeah, Sean's been working with the demo grants and the Burr grants and all of those sorts of things, and has had to submit the prevailing wage documents to back that up as we've gone along. So we've successfully cleared one $100,000 demo grant, and the second one is in process right now.
That's correct.
So.
Yeah.
What, I guess my only other question is on 7A, where you got the construction period, or 12 months. Now, this is a phased project for him. So are you, is the payback start after phase 1 is done, or is it after phase 3 is done, or at what time period would that be?
12 months, or the construction period, whichever is shorter.
Yeah, but is that for total construction, or is that just till he gets, from what I understand, he's opening, what, 40 rooms to start with or
54?
something?
54.
58?
Okay, yeah, so is that considered time for him to start paying it back then? Or are you gonna wait until, say, the swimming pool phase is done, or wait till the final phase is done? Because he's.
12 months.
Being he's opening it in phases.
The max we will wait is 12 months.
12 months from the time he signs.
Yep, the mortgage documents.
But what,
Yep. So are you asking what the shorter
yeah,
portion would be?
the shorter time period.
Yeah, so that is what he is asking for the funding for, and it was just listed on that sheet.
Okay, That's all I needed. to know.
Yep,
So I just
yep.
wanted to-
So basically, it's maximum 12 months or construction shorter,
Yep,
or less than 12 months.
yep,
if-
yep,
if the
so
construction is done.
it looks like it's phase 1 with the
Phase
54
one.
rooms.
So let's say if the phase one gets completed by March timeframe, that means interest and principal will come together from April? Or like, will that be after the phase two is done? Because phase one basically stops the bleeding, right? Like, because monthly expenses are pretty high on this building.
The construction-only period that HEDA usually allows for is a maximum of 12 months.
So that is okay. So if you can allow me for 12 months interest-only payments, that gives me enough time. The reason being, like all the existing loans, I already had a deal with all the banks to extend the current loans for interest only for the next 6 months. So the principal will not kick in until like next May timeframe. But more time, the better it is for me, because that makes me focus on phase two also, which is critical. The bar and restaurant is very important in the community.
So you're requesting a full 12 months of interest only,
That's
and then amortize the rest over that 9-year period?
I am usually ahead
That's
of
up
time.
to the EDA board. You can approve it that way. We have done it for other loans. It just hadn't come through in the request in the application that way, so I had done our standard of construction or 12 months maximum.
So we'd be striking out the construction part of it and just go with a straight 12 months.
Yes. Yep, that's what he's requesting.
So basically, if this goes through and everything falls in place, the signature is signed, you'd be looking about this time next year where it would be.
Well, remember, we're contingent on the IRRR, their meeting is
Right,
at the beginning
yeah.
of December. Yep,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's, I'm using December if
Yep.
everything falls in place.
Yep.
And all the signatures are done.
yeah, and I was gonna say, Aaron, typically when you write it in December, the first payment's due in January, right? So then the 12 months would be January
Yeah,
through
okay.
December, and the regular principal and interest would kick in January of 2025.
So one month ain't gonna make a difference, so.
Yeah, right.
So what you have in front of us then is our two documents that have been a lot of due diligence done by our staff, our HEDA staff, city administrator, our finance, and our attorney, correct? Before it ever, because we've talked about this for several months now.
Yes, we have.
So I just wanted to put that out there, that this has been thoroughly vetted, yeah, and discussed.
And where are we in line with the 250,000 then, as far as where does the EDA board sit?
So it's always the primary bank lender first, and the additional lenders that are, that have been in the deal from the very first day. So there were Entrepreneur Fund, Northland Foundation, the Minnesota Power.
ARDC.
Who's the fourth one?
ARDC.
ARDC, they're sharing a position after the primary lender, and then we would be after that, along with the IRRR at that stage.
Okay, so we're,
Yep, and as completed, the appraisal still allows for this much lending to only bring it up to 80% loan to value. So there is still value there.
But most of the projects, I'm usually ahead of the time in terms of payments, but this one is a little bit complex because of the bar and restaurant and other pieces involved. Especially the inflation is the bad one in this whole project, like, when I started it was completely different picture. And now in the last 2 years, like there was a huge impact on like almost everything. Otherwise, like I would never run into this issue.
I guess I have one question for you. The 3% rate, how did you come up with that being we're so far down the line, let's put it that way? And it does have quite a bit of risk.
Yeah, our 3% has been 3% from this EDA board for all the last loans that we've done, and you haven't come back to me and told me that you'd like me to increase that rate, depending upon, various factors, so I just put it forward at the regular 3% like we've always done. We don't have really much in our loan fund guidelines to come back and say, okay, for these types of loans, we'll do this. For, we do have different terms in there. And on real estate, we'll do 10 years. So, we have different lengths of loans, but we don't have a different interest rate at this point. I'm always open to the EDA board suggesting, that we take a look at that, do some research, and bring some things back to you, and you make a change.
And I think we should take a look at that, because where rates are right now, that's,
I do know that quite a few businesses are coming to us and using that to blend down the higher rates to get deals to pencil in certain areas. So they can always request, that, but it's definitely something we can take a look at. So I'll take a note and bring back some, look at some of the other EDAs in our area and how they're kind of lending and what, and give you some input, and then you can make some decisions around if you want to look at that. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Roger.
And I do know that Hibbing is in need of additional hotel space. We just want to make sure that with this amount of money that, we're going to make educated decisions for the best of the city, obviously. Hence the reason we're asking you all these questions, so. Does anybody else have any questions that's concerning them, or?
Madam President, I will make one other note, that the funds for this loan are coming from the city council, who has already approved it contingent on the EDA's approval. So this is not coming out of our regular loan funds at this time. And the interfund loan agreement will dictate how we pay it back to the city council as well. So something to keep in mind.
Okay. Anybody else?
Good discussion.
So I think, and it will definitely increase our tax base as well.
Yep,
So,
absolutely agree.
But you're going to give me some time, right?
with your other hotels, did you do the construction by yourself like you are this one, or did you have more help on the other ones than this one?
Depends on the project, because I usually try many different types of projects. So I used to have multiple LLCs, multiple different concepts, like I used to do a lot of IT-related work. So every concept is different. But these other hotels, like I had a lot of other help, because in the cities, it is, I get easy access to. Here it is very difficult. So I had to always figure out what is the best way, and especially the inflation is what affected me quite a bit.
Right.
Otherwise, things would have been very different.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you.
With that all said, I guess, do we,
Item
Move
number two.
forward.
No, that would be when we get down to
It's
two.
down below.
where
Yep.
am I?
This is just discussion, presentation.
Yeah, okay, all right.
We're still.
So now, number 2, you have the IRRR, the
Yes, so my
non-recourse.
next presentation then is the IRRR non-recourse loan application for AMGS expansion. We had, in our working session, we looked over a few different options, options 1, 2, and 3. They're in front of you again tonight. But you'll notice it says review of 4 options. That's because we are continuously working on some other option as well. So option number 1 is to expand into available existing space at about $7 million. And that would be an overall cost per square foot of $157 per square foot. And Widseth has put these together for us, one of our local shops in town. Option number 2 then was to add 15,000 square foot addition to the current North Hibbing building. And that's at an overall cost per square foot of $217, and the total price tag was $7.8 million. Option number 3 is to build a 25,000 square foot space brand new in North Hibbing on property already owned by the city. And that comes in at a price tag of $6.8 million, with overall cost per square foot of $273. So, all of these are fairly expensive options. I am working on a option number 4 that potentially we can do something a little bit more reasonably priced. And what I'm looking at there is option number 1 minus that loading dock area demolition and new 10,000 square foot addition, and doing something for around 4.5 million at the current building by expanding that. If you'll look at the picture, there's that gray area. That's where R&B was going to be. And potentially we'll look at trying to open up that space a little bit more, because right now the manufacturing space for that particular side of the building is smaller than the space that AMGS is currently occupying. But, you know, none of these options at $6.8 to $7.8 million are really all that attractive right now for fledgling manufacturing. We were working with the Iron Gate Mall, trying to figure out a space there at about 38,000 square feet, but the owner of that is just not interested in selling us any portion of that building to put those improvements in. And as the city, I'm not interested in putting millions of dollars of renovation into somebody else's building that they own, and then trying to do a lease with them and my tenant, and just, you know, there's too many moving pieces in that. So that would have been a great way to fill a 38,000 square foot space that has been empty for far too long in our community. But at this point, you know, unless the tenant can do that deal with the mall owner themselves, it's just not advantageous, you know, for us to be a part of a deal like that. And the tenant is telling us right now that it's not something that he can take on in that kind of a space all on his own. So, like I said, I'm working on option number 4, which is option number 1 minus the 2.25, 10,000 square foot expansion there. So there is then in your packet a resolution to go after additional funding for that, for the expansion. And you'll see it's item 2E, and the amount is TBD, because I wanted to have that conversation with you. So I just wanted to give a presentation and put that, you know, have you think about that a little bit. And then when we get down there, you can talk about the motion and things. So any questions on the 4 options that we've been looking at as we move through this conversation about expansion for our manufacturing client?
Betsy, my only question was, you haven't seen the actual loan documents for the non-recourse loan, am I correct? From the IRRR yet?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So all of that would have to come back for signature and
Sure.
that sort of thing. Yep. I just can't even apply unless they know that the EDA board is okay with me applying.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
So Betsy, has the client, do they have a preference as far as which option
Yes,
would work best for them?
this is the one that we discussed today, and he came back and said, I would prefer option number 1 minus the new 10,000 square feet and closer to that $4 million if we
Okay.
could.
So option 1 is what he wants.
That's,
Option 1 is what he can make work in his
Yeah.
financial picture at this time.
Minus the 2.2. Anybody else have any questions for Betsy and the IRRR? I guess we can think about that and discuss it at our next working session, maybe?
Well, this one actually will need to pass a resolution not to exceed an amount that I can apply for, because their meeting is on December 8th. So otherwise, we'd need to hold another special meeting in between now and then if you're not willing to, you know, go for that now. Or we could say, we're not going to apply for anything until their February board meeting. Unfortunately, what that does for the bidding of like roofs and things, which we know needs to be replaced, then the problem would become, we can't go out for bids until it's an unattractive time again, and then we're gonna get caught back in that where the roof is gonna cost $1 million again because everybody's already busy and bid out, you know, so.
So 2E is time-sensitive then? That's
Yep.
what I'm hearing you say?
Yep,
Okay.
and so it would be the standard, you know, fixing the roof, fixing the loading dock, opening up that side, and doing that in the most economical way that we possibly can.
So he's pretty much expanding within the same building
Yep,
without doing any additional outside expansion.
at this time.
And he feels he has the roof height in that area to do what he needs to do?
Yeah, he went out and sourced some new technology for his oven technology, which means instead of requiring the 65-foot span for the oven profile that he needs to do the powder coating, you know, bake that
Yeah,
on.
yep.
That he's investigated some new infrared technology that will use a different type of oven that heats the metal. Instead of, you know, baking it with ambient air, it heats the metal itself, which then bakes it onto, there's a chemical reaction that takes
Yeah.
place. He said he's been down to the cities and seen 4 different shops that are doing this down in the cities already. So he knows that the technology is proven and is not, you know, sort of bleeding edge. But also it allows him to maybe get a smaller footprint, you know, or get by with a smaller footprint for longer. But he would need that second side, and right now he's not in that side at all. So we will need to rewrite the lease agreement such that he's using more of the building and that sort of thing, so.
Okay.
So the total size of the building then after this addition would be,
Same.
The same size.
The
It's
same
like
size.
31,000, 32,000 square feet when I was looking at the lease agreement. I will tell you too that this summer, he was running 5 orders out of there a week. And now he is, out a week. And now he's at 17 to 20 every 2 weeks. So he's literally doubled in production going through the facility.
Basically, what you're looking for us for tonight is just the okay to go to the IRRB to get funding.
X
Yep,
amount of
and I
dollars.
want to know what your maximum amount is. Yep.
Okay.
What would your request, I mean, basically, since you had the conversation with him, Jason, today, what is the amount that you're looking for? I mean, I don't want
I think it
to
was
pick
about
something out of the air.
4.55. You know, if you do the math on that.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
was
the
looking at
1.8
that.
plus the, yep.
799, 738, 550, 100, and
Yeah, so that, it changes because the 30% of soft costs obviously is on a smaller amount.
yeah, right.
Yeah, so. Yep,
So 455, well, when we get to that point,
yep.
all right.
okay, anybody else have anything to ask Betsy there on regarding that? Expansion?
Betsy, maybe I missed that, I apologize. If you ask for the 455, that's the max you're gonna get then, right?
Yep.
Versus if you ask for one of the higher options and then cut it back?
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm asking the board. If you
Right.
want to do like 6.8, you could, you know.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna use all 6.8
No.
Right.
if they went with one of the other options. That's why I was just wondering
Yes.
if the board, just so the board understands, if they approve 4.55, that's the only option for the 4 you have that are available.
Yes.
I realize you don't maybe want to
Yeah.
go higher, but if you went for a higher number, got the higher number, that doesn't mean you have to take it all. You could say, but we decided, you know, we firmed things up and got a little more info, and we do want to do the 455, so we're only going to do it for that. But if
Right.
you cap yourself there, of the 4 options, that's the only option you could do.
So Andy, if we just said, since option 1 was discussed, and it seems like the one he wants to go with besides the rear, if we just said, if we approved option 1, and then they can pull things out and come up with their final.
Well, right, I think, I think that would give Betsy a little bit more room to work, to me, anyway, with the IRRR. If you went for the higher number, if you get the higher number, if it turns out the tenant, things iron out themselves out that 4 is all that they really do need and want to go forward with, well, then she can just lower the number, but you've already gotten approved for a higher amount, so I just think you're more protected, or it gives Betsy, to me, more negotiating work with the IRRR and the tenant going forward, versus this is the only one we really have in the game if you're at option 4. I just think it would give Betsy a little bit more flexibility. I'm not saying she's gonna go higher than what you guys want, but it just gives, she's already got it on the books that we could do these different things because you've approved it. If you don't want to approve it, then don't do it, but you're just
Right.
saying you could apply for that high number.
Right,
We're not necessarily approving that that's what we want you to do later.
right.
So it's more beneficial to go with the higher amount.
If it's not gonna preclude, if the
I will-
IRRR says, well, we're not gonna give you 7, we might give you 5 or 4, well, then Betsy knows where they are, but if they'll approve 7, I just feel like it gives you guys a few more options.
Well, and of course, you know me.
Well, in this,
I'm gonna negotiate as
Right,
much
I
as,
was-
you know what I mean?
I was just going to say, is that what we put in this, for the resolution on E then, is just a negotiated amount by both parties or whatever? How do you'll help us with that verbiage then?
To me, if you shot for the highest amount of the 4 options, and then, and Betsy can get the feel from the staff at the IRRR, if they're saying, we're not gonna give you that, but we might give you something less, well, she knows where she has to work with. But if option 4 really is the best option, as it turns out, then she's like, okay, but we're only gonna take 4.5. That's all we decided we need, but you really kind of, Betsy's just had a chance to throw this together, and I'm not blaming her, but option 4 is literally coming together today, so I would just hate that it turned out option 4 isn't quite right, we're gonna need 5 or 6, and we're only getting 4.5. I just feel like it gives her a little bit more room if you gave her the most authorization, and then she can pare it down if it works for the board and the tenant, because all you're doing is approving the application. You're not saying we're gonna use all the money.
Okay.
So in E, then, we would put that higher amount in there?
That would be, if you're looking for my suggestion, and again, I'm just the lawyer, but I'd just say, of the 4 options, take the highest one.
Well,
Again,
and don't tie it to an
to
option,
apply.
it's the amount, yeah,
to apply.
Right, right. Don't tie it to option 1, 2, 3, or 4.
No.
right.
Just
Just the
apply for the highest number of the 4 options.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for
Yep, so if there's
your opinion.
no other questions, my presentations are over, Madam Chair, and I'll hand the agenda back over to you.
Okay, then we can move on to the board reports. I believe our next. And we go right to number 1, the city attorney, Andy Borland, approved the business subsidy agreement for the Red Rock Hotel. Would you like to speak to that, Andy?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So within your packet is the business subsidy agreement for Midwest Partners, which is Red Rock Hotel and Suites. We crafted this, and so you know, the city passed back in 2004 the ability to pass business subsidies. You have to have a program in place, and the city actually did that years ago. So it's not like we're breaking new ground here, but we went through and last year, Betsy and Sheena and I had gone over language to kind of update where we are with regard to business subsidies and how to make sure that we're properly reporting them to the state. So based on that, our office crafted this agreement with information from Betsy as to what we're trying to do here. And because of the size of the loan involved, and again, Betsy had indicated the $250,000 is really coming from the IRRR, but it's funneling through us. So based on that size of a loan, we need to disclose it as a business subsidy.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, I will correct one thing. The IRRR's funding is coming from them through another avenue. Ours is city council funding through the EDA.
Sorry,
Yep.
okay.
I know there's lots of moving pieces on this one.
That being said, because of its size, then we have to approve it as a business subsidy. Because of the criteria that you need under the statute, this hits as a business subsidy. So that's why we had the public hearing, if anyone wanted to speak to that. And so we're here tonight to consider whether or not the board wants to go ahead and enter into an agreement with Midwest Partners for the purposes of this business subsidy, which subsequently turns into the loan documents that we've previously drafted as well, that would have to be executed, if in fact the board wanted to enter into this agreement and the owner wanted to enter into the agreement.
So are you looking for us to approve the business, a motion to approve the
Yes.
business subsidy? Okay,
Well, if the board wants
If the board
to,
wants
it's
to.
time to do that.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, so we would need a motion to approve the business subsidy agreement for the Red Rock Hotel.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by member Hoffman Sockman to approve the business subsidy agreement. Do we have a second?
I'll support that.
Supported by Vice President Durenas. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, number 2. Community Development Director Betsy Alavanti.
Okay, so we're going to take item 2C then first, which is approve the revised HEDA loan guidelines. And we workshopped this at our last workshop. And so this particular change in our loan guidelines, I'm trying to get all the way back to this one. All right, is on page 2 of the loan program guidelines, where it says that if the project is dependent upon the efforts and talents of a single owner, or if the requested loan is deemed substantial and the debt will be subordinated, or if the liquidation value of the collateral is deemed to make it hard for HEDA to collect the remaining balance of the loan, the HEDA board may require the project to obtain a life insurance policy for the principal amount and name HEDA as the insured. And so because we are going to request that of the Red Rock property for the loan funds that we are lending from the city to that project, we would need to approve this loan fund guideline revision prior to approving that loan. And it will stand for all subsequent loans coming through with the same conditions.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor to approve these revised HEDA loan fund guidelines? And as
So-
Betsy said, we will utilize them moving forward.
Yes. Madam.
Roger?
So moved.
Roger?
Oh.
No, he's got it.
Motion made by member Kivala,
Support.
supported by member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And I just wanted to add that this loan program guidelines have been in the works for many, many months. I went back through my emails, and I think they started back,
A year ago.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Yep. Yep. So I'm glad to see them being a living, breathing document that we use and amend as appropriate. So that's good. Excellent. All right, so item 2A then is to approve the interfund loan resolution number 231111, accepting $250,000 from the city of Hibbing to lend out to Midwest Properties LLC. This particular resolution, interfund loan, was approved at the city council meeting last Wednesday with certain guidelines. One of the stipulations that the city council approved this on was that the EDA approve their version of this loan fund, or interfund loan, to agree to accept the funds, lend it out to a project, and then pay it back with the interfund loan terms, which are the exact same terms as we would lend it out to the project. So we would pay back any interest annually for that first year as we receive it from the project. And then after that, we would pay one payment per annum to the city council that is all principal and interest received on the particular funds lent out.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the interfund?
I'll make a
loan?
motion, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support. Go ahead, Steve.
Supported by Vice President Drainus. Any further discussion?
Madam President, the only other, within the resolution, you might see it, the only other, I'll say contingency is that the city approved it, also contingent upon Midwest
Yes.
Getting
The other funding.
the private financing
Yep.
as well as the financing from the IRRR. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, no further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to letter B.
Excellent. So item B is to authorize the Heda loan to Midwest Properties LLC for the continued renovations at the Red Rock Hotel per the submitted loan write-up. And the collateral is subordinated as indicated in the loan write-up. And the terms, one change that we did discuss tonight is that it will be 3% for 10 years with the first 12 months at the interest only and the remaining amortization over the 9 years.
Thank you.
Yes. Andy and I always go back on this afterwards to make sure that we're clear. So this time I'm trying to clear it all up right at the time we lend it.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion on letter B to authorize the HEDA Loan Fund to Midwest Properties?
I'll make that motion, Madam President.
Motion made by Member Hoffman Sockman,
We'll support.
supported by Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Letter D.
Okay, so in your packet then, we have the revised City of Hibbing Downtown Redevelopment District Commercial Rehabilitation Program Handbook. And the changes that I'm requesting based on my work with Attorney Borland and Finance Director Sheena Mullner are all highlighted in yellow. And they are as follows here. So we've passed the initial handbook, but we're changing a couple of things. Page 6, 9D.3 is if the property is sold or title transferred before the end of the 5th year, the loan balance, initial loan less interest-only payments in the first year and pro rata loan forgiveness in subsequent years, must be repaid to HEDA at the time of closing or assumed by the new owner at the time of closing, provided the new owner files appropriate loan paperwork to demonstrate financial feasibility and said assumption is approved by the HEDA board. In other words, the assumption is not automatically granted to the new owner of the building. In case of a thing like they buy it contract for deed and there's no real review of financial feasibility, I want the EDA board to have the ability to review the financial feasibility of said project and make sure that, yes, there is financial wherewithal to pay back both the contract for deed and continue the building upkeep and repair and maintenance such that the investments will not go bad. So that one. We added a couple of things in there about conditions of default. And it's the requirements for job creation, building improvements, property taxes, and utility bills, and how we may call the note due. And if the loan defaults within that deferral period, it will be called with the prorated amount of the principal plus interest associated. So let's say they maintain for the first 2 years, the jobs, the utilities, and their property taxes, and all is going along well. And then something, say, a worldwide pandemic comes along and they fall into, a default condition. Well, the first 2 years can still be prorated, forgiven, and then, the default would happen after that. So what we have is the ability to do a look back and make sure that conditions were met and, review that at that time. So that was something that we clarified. And then on page 7, let's see, what is that? It is 11C, talks about how once we approve the deferred loan, the improvements will normally be completed within 6 to 12 months from the date of the issuance. However, if they need additional time based on supply chain issues or workforce issues or what have you, they can come back and request additional time if they cannot commence within 30 days and complete within 12 months. So let's say we approve a loan and they don't do anything for the first 30 days. They never come in and sign the loan docs, all of that sort of thing. EDA can say that loan is no longer, a valid loan because they did not complete the documents, therefore the funding goes back in the loan pool. Or let's say they've been drawing and doing renovations throughout a 12-month period. They do well for 6 months, and then they stop, and then they don't do anything for additional 12 months. We have the right to fund the loan fully at whatever they had drawn in the 6 months and start the amortization period at that time for that deferred loan. And then the rest of the funds approved that were not drawn can go back into the loan pool. What we're trying to do is make sure that we don't ever have a situation where we lend out funds and they sit there for 12 months and do nothing. Because there might be other projects that could use those funds and are more project-ready. So we're just trying to accommodate a couple of different scenarios, because we've had that before, right? Where you lent out money, tied up $250,000, and then the project didn't start for 2 years. Well, we do have that in our loan guidelines now, so we mimicked that in this program. And I think that was it.
10G.
Page 10, maybe?
10G.
Oh, 10G. Yep, so once the loan docs are signed and the mortgage is recorded, a lien is placed against the property for the term of the loan. You may negotiate a different interest-only term if warranted and will be recorded. Let's say they keep you apprised and they say things like, we're not done yet, at 12 months, and they ask for an additional 6. You always have the ability to approve those additions or revisions to the loan note, but none of those will be an automatic. They must come back and ask you for those kinds of things, similarly to our other loans.
Quick question on numbers, page 7.
Yes.
With the first scenario that you had given, if the person doesn't come in and fill out the paperwork or whatever, do we have a process then in place that we call, we send certified letters and all of that type of a thing? Do we have that written out somewhere, or what's that process look like?
So what we've done so far is we would come back to the EDA board and do it as part of our note of record, your minutes, that they did not fill the paperwork, therefore the loan is no longer, valid, and it'll revert back. But I do believe we send a certified letter to follow up on that, like we did with the, was it?
We did have
Yes,
one.
Blue Moon property. We sent a follow-up letter.
Right, okay.
Yep. So it's all official here.
Yeah.
It's been approved by the EDA, and then we send the letter.
Okay, thank you.
So we would need a motion to put that money back into the funds.
Yeah, that's how we did it last time, to rescind the approval and put the funds back in for a subsequent applicant. Yep. And that gives them the opportunity to approach the board and ask for an extension, et cetera, or the ability to say, yeah, those funds need to be available to the next project because they're not following through on their end.
Good, Thank you.
Yeah, so at this time then, if there are no other questions, I would ask for approval of the revised program handbook.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. On to E.
All right, and this is the last item then to approve resolution number 231112, authorizing the Hibbing Economic Development Authority to make an application to and accept funds from the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation in the amount of, which you will set, to assist with the expansion of AMGS.
Okay, and we have listened to Andy in his suggestion moving forward. So do we have a motion to, if you want to have it at that 7, and then we can always, you can always drop it back?
Yeah.
So I guess that's up to us to decide. So,
I think 7815 is the highest, isn't it?
I think that's one we should go for.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
can always come down, but you can't go
Yeah.
back up.
it's like setting a levy.
Yeah.
Yep, I was just going to say.
so we have a, so you're thinking 7.8?
It was 815,860. You might as well use the actual number that was projected.
So seven,
$7,815,860. And I'll make a motion for that,
okay, all right.
based on Andy's recommendation.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor from Mayor Hyduk,
I will second
it- seconded by Member Kivala. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No further discussion. All opposed? Motion carries. And that was the third. All right, so I think, Betsy, is that all you have
Yes.
on your section? Now we can move on to Sheena, Finance Director.
Thanks for being here, Aaron, representing Sheena today.
Madam Chair and members, yep, I'm Erin filling in for Sheena tonight. The first item, F, is the Bruce Icorn re-amortization request. He had sent a letter stating he has paid off 3 of the 5 townhomes. So he's currently paying principal and interest on the $100,000 borrowed, and he would like to re-amortize that, so he have a smaller payment. So the rate stays the same and the length of the loan stays the same. So we just need you to approve it, and
Okay, do we have a motion for the Bruce Icorn re-amortization request?
You do know.
Which,
So moved.
motion made by Member Kivala,
I'll support that.
supported by Vice President Juranis. Any further discussion?
I'm just glad to see those townhouses, you know, they sat there so long, that I give them credit for taking over this project.
There ain't many old coaches laying around there anymore.
No,
Way better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's done a great job there.
Yeah.
There's-
Yeah, I give him
It's 100%
a lot of
improvement out there,
credit
so,
for taking those on.
yes. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And now you're on to the loan updates.
Yes.
Erin.
okay, so going over the status of the loans, the first one that is delinquent on our list is Jenny Damjanovic. Finance Director Sheena did speak with her today. Her last payment was in October, so she's delinquent for November. And she said she did not have the money to pay for November. Andy Koshak, he is paid through September. Sheena talked to him today. He should be in tomorrow to make that payment. And he will possibly set up ACH, that he won't have to come in and pay in person. Moxie is 2 months behind. We've tried reaching out to her, and I believe we called today, and her phone was shut off, and a voicemail was left. Smart Thrivent is still 3 months behind. That's all of the ones that are not up to date.
What is our suggestion for Smart Thrivent?
Well, we're going in closed session tonight to consult with our attorney about that particular topic.
Other than that, everything looks pretty good. Okay, Erin, thank you for your loan. Anybody have any questions for Erin and the loan updates? Okay, then we can adjourn this one, or go into closed session first?
So, Madam President, before you act, I just have to say, for the record, so you note on the here, this is for closed session. There's potential litigation that the HEDA board could commence, and that's why, and to give you strategies and ideas and thoughts about that potential litigation, it's best that that be done in a private closed session, such that the strategy is yours, can't be learned by anyone else, and therefore, to give you the best information possible as to different options going forward. And you're balancing the right to have everything out in the open because you're a public body versus the, getting advice from your attorney as to what might be the most prudent way to go. And for that reason, that is the basis under which you want to close this session for purposes of litigation, potential litigation anyway. I don't know that you're necessarily going to take any formal action tonight, so I don't know that we're going to need to come back. So if you want to make your motion to go into closed session with the understanding that you then immediately make a motion to adjourn, because we're not going to come back into open session thereafter.
Okay. So we need a motion to go into a closed session?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, to go into closed session.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.